Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Maketz, or at the end of. It is found in Genesis chapter 41, verse 1 through chapter 47, verse 17. Zechariah chapter 2, verse 14 through chapter 4, verse 7. Luke chapter 24, verses 13 through 29. And Psalms chapters 33 through 35. It took 2 years for Joseph to be released out of prison. 2 whole years after he believed freedom from bondage was near, because he was told by the chief baker that he would remember him and tell Pharaoh about him. How many times have we been in situations where we cried out to Yah, asking for release, asking to be healed? Quoting Psalms chapter 30, verse 5, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And then something happens, and we think, oh, here it is. It's my time now, only for things to stay the same or get worse. What a perfect title for this Torah portion, at the end of. I wonder if Joseph felt a renewing in his spirit with the thought that soon he may be released. I know I would have felt that way. But 2 years later, and he's still in the same dungeon, I'm sure Joseph was at the end of his rope, or should I say hope. He probably started doubting himself and God. We have to remember, these people were human, just like us, and embodied all of the same human feelings we have today. Studying this portion made me think of this gospel song I love by Kurt Carr called I Almost Let Go. Part of the song says, I almost gave up. I was right at the edge of a breakthrough, but I couldn't see it. That's exactly where Joseph was, at the edge, but didn't know it. Some may be thinking 2 years is a long time to be in prison, especially when you're innocent. But everything is in Yah's timing, and we all know our timing and Yah's timing is 2 very different things. This portion also made me think about a story Pastor David told us many years ago about a trip he was on in Atlanta, and how he was driving and the rain was coming down so hard that all the drivers had to pull over. Now, I can't remember exactly what made him begin to drive again, but just a minute or 2 after driving again, he entered clear skies, and I believe he said he could still see the downpour in the rearview mirror. But when he pulled over, he had no idea a break in the rain was within reach. He was right on the edge of a literal breakthrough. Spiritually speaking, we have to continue to move forward, even when we're scared and don't know what's lying ahead. So that brings us to Pharaoh having 2 dreams, and none of his wise men or magicians could interpret the dreams for him. This is when the chief baker remembers Joseph and tells Pharaoh about him. Genesis chapter 41 verse 15 says, it says, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. Now, remember, this is Pharaoh. Not only is he king of Egypt, which is considered the center of the world, but he's also considered to be a god. With one word or one look, he could order Joseph to be killed, and Joseph knows this. But what did Joseph do? He reminded Pharaoh that they were both just mere men, and gave all honor and credit to Yah, the true God of all creation, by saying in Genesis chapter 41, verse 16, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Because of Joseph's interpretation of the dreams, even Pharaoh himself proclaimed in Genesis chapter 41, verse 38, and Pharaoh says to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? And just like that, after years of waiting, Joseph receives his breakthrough. And what I love about it is that the Lord did not take Joseph out of Egypt, then restore him, but rather right where Joseph was, right there in the very place he experienced tribulation and affliction. Yah blessed and elevated him. Right there in the midst of his enemies, Yah raised him up. Joseph even gave his sons names based off of his experience. Genesis chapter 41, verses 51 and 52 says, Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. I love that word fruitful. In the Hebrew Strongs, it is H6509, and it means to increase or to grow. In my opinion, this was just another beautiful way Joseph could remember all that Yah had done for him. Now, here we are today at the end of the season of Hanukkah, a feast celebrated for thousands of years, commemorating the rededication of Yah's holy temple, where it is said that Yah performed the great miracle of causing a little bit of oil that should have only lasted one day to light the menorah in the temple to last 8 days until more oil could be ready for use. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16, the Apostle Paul says, do you not know that you are the temple of God, that the Spirit of God dwells in you? We are the temple of Yah. And even though there are times when we may feel that our supply of oil may be running low and our little lights feel like they may be flickering, we have to remember that it is Yah who will sustain us and will be our strength and cause us to continue on. We are reminded in the Psalms for this week's reading that Yah sees those who fear him and hope in his mercy. That word hope means to wait or to expect. I love the words to expect, because when you expect something to happen, that means you wholeheartedly believe that thing will come to pass. Just like we put our faith in our jobs and know that when payday comes, we will receive our paychecks, we have to put our faith in Yah and know that he is true to his word and expect him to strengthen us in whatever circumstance we may find ourselves in. He tells us in his word that his grace is sufficient. In the Brit Hadashah, we read in Luke chapter 24, verses 13 through 29, that 2 disciples were walking and talking and were experiencing grief because of Yeshua's death. And unbeknownst to them, Yeshua himself appears to them and reminds them about all the scriptures relating to him. Now, if you continue reading past verse 29, we learn that eventually they come to understand that the man talking with them is Yeshua. But for me, verse 32 is the key, because they admit that even before they knew it was Yeshua, they felt it in their hearts. They didn't even know it was him, but they pressed him to stay with them when he was going to part ways with them. I'm sure they felt a peace that surpassed all their understanding. Likewise with us, when we find ourselves in those dark moments, all we have to do is let Yeshua minister to us through his word. Let him remind us of who he is. We have to continue to hold on just like Joseph did and do what David said in Psalms chapter 34 verse 1, which is to bless the Lord at all times and let his praise continually be in our mouths. Shabbat Shalom.